All right. You are seeing this screen. Perhaps you have come to a solid conclusion about what topic you want to speak about, and sometimes it is a struggle. Think about trips you have taken. So think about things you already know a lot about. Sorry, let's step back. You want to speak about things you already know a lot about. I mentioned this yesterday, so I will be brief. Just think of the bag speech. Think about where do you invest most of your time. Think about where you would like to invest most of your time. Ask yourself a couple like what's important to you. It's in general approach that I advocate is think about what's important to you. In this case, think about what is important to you that you can tell others in 4 to 6 minutes or 5 to 7 minutes. Rarely in life you're going to be in situations where you're going to be expected to give a speech longer or shorter than that. It's a pretty standard window. Think about trips you have taken if you've gone anywhere that you want to, sometimes you catch down, like it's an old joke, you catch your relatives, this is way before your time, and invite them over for a slideshow of your vacation pics. And you would like, people used to do that, and it was like, oh no, they're going to do this to us. But here's your opportunity to do that to us and to have this experience where you got us for 4 to 6 minutes and you can tell us some beautiful things about some beautiful places, maybe that you went, or maybe you'd like to go to, but you've studied it a lot because you always wanted to study in France. I don't know. Skills. Do you have any special skills? I speak Russian and I'm a musician, besides being a communications instructor. So I have certain skills that I can share with you. So you probably have some other skills. I would bet my experience, I would say my experience taught me that in every classroom, everyone's a specialist on something. All of you probably know more about something than anybody else in that classroom. And that's pretty cool. So share if you have those skills. Internships. Have you gone someplace interesting that you've done work for? I'm a big fan of internships because they're an opportunity. It's like to date a career where you can go and hang out and have a good time, hopefully, and then you both decide if you want to make this a more long-term thing, hopefully. So those are kind of all internships are interesting things you may want to talk to us about. That's one. Or you can go slightly different route and say, you know what, I've always wanted to learn about this. And you just dive into it, but please don't dive too deep because you only have a little bit of time. My experience has taught me that people that are really passionate, so-called perhaps nerds on something, can have a hard time stopping speaking, and speeches will go on longer than you would otherwise, I would anticipate a speech like that to go. I highly suggest you doing more research for things that you're passionate about, because things you want to know more about, that's for persuasive speech, because in persuasive speech it's important to present both sides because you have this counter argument part that's very important. And so you got to present it both sides. Sometimes we don't know both sides. So check that out, particularly for persuasive speech. Of course, we can do our own personal inventory. We can get our own experiences, our own interests, hobbies, skills, beliefs, etc. Have you been through something? Just to, look yourself over and write down which scars you got where. Hobbies, again, Pokemon. I don't know what else is there that we can search through that we believe we have skills, etc., etc. Clustering, people, places, things. For instance, drones in games and movies. You can tell us a story about a movie. If there's I would be interested in hearing, let's say, Groundhog Day retold as first this happens and then this happens and then this happens. But there could be other legends you want to share with us. Stories are always great. When we had more exchange students, we had quite a few Chinese students. That was a few years ago. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Or at least in this classroom. We have, they would say frequently they're confused about what to do a speech about. I suggested sharing their holiday because we don't know much about Chinese New Year as much as they do. So that was a popular topic for a speech. Uh, processes. Processes is tricky because it's a demonstration. And some people say that demonstration is not worthy of being part of an informative speech assignment. I don't have a particular problem with it. I do miss the experience of being with you guys because frequently for processes, people would make lemon bars or other things. And particular lemon bar that stood out was the one that was by itself no good in my opinion, but the speech was great. So if the speech is great, then you get the points because I'm, eating it, and is a totally different situation. Concepts. Something interesting. You can take a concept apart and inform us about the nature of it. Um, love, hate. I had a student who was, I believe, speaking on nature of passion and how it was affecting them physically and emotionally, and it was very informative. So there's different things people sometimes will come up with. Natural phenomena, weather. I do not recommend going into global climate change or whatever it is right now, because we need to save that one for persuasive speech. It really doesn't make sense to say it in this setting. Um, problems, again, persuasive speech, but yes, problems, heroin, cyberbullying, political gridlock. There's I mean, it seems like this list is in need of update, even though just because not the problems changed, but the wording has changed. And plans and policies, anything to do with government. Anything to do with government goes into plans and policies, and that's can be immigration policy, it can be free college, it can be anything you want a government to get involved with. Legalization of drugs will be plans and policies. And of course, always suggestion, you have an idea, Google it. You have an idea, just or I wish we were in classroom where I would say by show of hands, anybody else using anything but Google. And usually there'd be like, you know, and I said, no, Yahoo is almost like the same thing. Bing, does anybody use Bing? A few people, maybe sometimes, not always. Sometimes there's nobody in the classroom that uses Bing. But they're still apparently maintaining 10% of the market, and that's good enough for them to be profitable. So search out your ideas and check out their Wikipedia pages, because it will give you ideas for main points, as discussed yesterday. Determining the general purpose. Are we there to inform, or are we there to persuade? If we are there to inform, that means that we're going to not have opposition there. Like if I'm telling you about air, or the surface of planet Mars, I'm not advocating for something. I'm just telling you about surface of planet Mars, or the sky. We're not arguing about location of certain things in the presentation. We're just here things are. We're informing our audience. On the other hand, if we're going the persuasion route, that is a distinctly different style, and we need to be aware when we communicate with people. Sometimes just test: are you having an informative conversation? Here's what happened in school. Or are you having a persuasive conversation and you're trying to get something accomplished? Ask yourself. Determining the specific purpose. Well, it may help you in determining exact thesis of your presentation, to think about what is it that you want your audience to be more informed about, because that's very good approach here. In general, it is also a good idea to think about what does your audience want to hear about, and what kind of a speech would they like to listen to. Do they want something that's going to be about something that they have no idea how it connects to them? Or do they want to talk about something that interests them and probably you, because you're all in the same classroom? So if you have certain things that are interesting to you, chances are they're also interesting to your classmates. So you want to inform your audience about whatever it is, or you want to persuade your audience. Um, if you're trying to get certain outcome, call to action, etc. Tips for formulating the specific purpose statement. Book suggests to write the purpose statement as a full infinitive phrase and not as a fragment. What is a full infinitive phrase, you may ask? It's that thing right here that says to inform, because it's a sentence that starts with a to and a verb. It's called a full infinitive phrase. Okay. Express purpose as a statement, not as a question. Is global warming a good thing? Question mark. No. One of the hoops that you're expected to jump through here and in most situations in life is to be clear about what it is that you're there for. If you put a question, you create ambiguity. Sometimes, many times, ambiguity is wonderful. But in a speech setting, clear, this is what you're going to inform us about. Avoid figurative language in purpose statement. Be literal. Unless the roads suck, don't say the roads suck. If they're sucking people in, then they're sucking. But otherwise, it doesn't make any sense in purpose statement setting. So avoid figurative language. Be specific, clear, literal. Limit purpose statement to one distinct idea. Narrow, narrow, narrow. This is going back to the first TED Talk we watched in class by Chris Anderson about how to create a TED Talk, and he was suggesting 4 ideas or 4 approaches, and the first one is have a distinct idea. We need to do that in order to focus. When we are speaking about something that is too broad, it may exceed our time limitations. I had a student who gave a speech on Turkey, and he wanted to say everything about it in 4 minutes. It doesn't work. Apparently, Turkey has climate, history, religion, geology, geography, cuisine. It's a long list, and he tried to cover it for some reason. Narrow it down, narrow it down, narrow it down, and then tell us 3 things about it. Make sure specific purpose is not too vague or general. Something versus actionable advice. This is giving you an idea of how to create really a call to action. You want to have a specific purpose. And if your specific purpose is not clear, like, why are you there? Well, I'm just here to inform you. Then you have an informative speech. Does your specific purpose, does it meet the assignment? Can I accomplish my purpose in the time allotted? People on average, folks, speak 120 to 150 words per minute. That's about 750 words for 5-minute speech. I did this with newscasts that I record in Russian, and I go between 150 and sometimes 180 words, 180 words per minute, but still right now closer to 150, I think, if the software can be trusted. It's really fast, pretty fast speaking all the time. Like there's no time for thing because you're just reading. That means that if you're going to write down your entire speech, you know exactly how long time it's going to take. You go, I don't know, I'm supposed to speak for 3 minutes to the city council. Will I be able to do it? Count the words. 150 words per minute is, I would say, good upper limit. And then you'll know if your speech fits or doesn't. And this is going to take us into the next chapter we're going to discuss today. But who is my audience? What is interesting to them? As I mentioned, folks, think about who are people sitting around you. What kind of things do all of you are likely to have in common? The same problems, the same challenges, the same things you maybe are excited about together. And then ask yourself, is the purpose that something you're going to inform us about, is it too trivial? for my audience. If this is something that is 2 plus 2 equals 4, or you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to tell you how to succeed in elementary school today. We're going to, it sounds strange because you're done with that. That's behind you. You don't really care about succeeding in elementary school setting right now. Or is the purpose too technical for my audience? This is for the nerds in the audience. If you're going to have something that is just requires too much knowledge for understanding of this situation, then it's not good for this audience. There's this inventor, Ray Kurzweil, and he's famous for a whole bunch of different things, including all these talks about future and what it's going to be like, technologically speaking. And he speaks to these huge audiences like kings and queens, and his name is Ray Kurzweil. He invented a keyboard, like a musical keyboard. There's of his design that's been the standard for a long time. And Ray Kurzweil, I saw a lecture of his because there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube where he goes back to MIT, and he speaks there, and all of a sudden it's like he started speaking a different language. He was still speaking English, but he just lost me. I was like trying to keep up because I'm pretty okay, but I couldn't do it. And so I think that's one of the impressive things, is that knowing how you need to speak to different audiences. How are you speaking to your grandma? How are you speaking to your boss? How are you speaking to all those different people? What are they capable of understanding? Right? So if it's too much for them, either change the topic or break it down or limit what you're going to speak about. And that is our talk on selecting a topic for our speech.